allows us to leave this one behind for a little bit, and we're going to switch over to one of the top 5 workloads that organizations are using Intune for, and that is for application deployment. We might not get to the scripts part today, but if not, we'll do that tomorrow morning. But we'll see. So, welcome, module number 2, deploying apps and scripts. I'm still Johan. Andrew is still Andrew. We still have questions. So,
Johan, do you want to share your screen?
I thought I did.
It's probably Zoom's fault that it's not up.
Oh, it is not Zoom's fault. But thank you for trying to give me an out. Anyhow, apps. All right. And the thing is, Intune supports a good chunk of application types that you guys can deploy and work with. But there are 2 ones that really stands out. Do you happen to know which 2 that are like the top applications on this list, or application types on this list?
I know one of them is probably the Intune Win.
Absolutely. So this one is definitely a winner, the Win32 apps. And skip the word Win32, that's just what Microsoft used to describe a desktop application. It could be 32-bit, it could be 64-bit, it can be ARM. They even have it recently filtered for ARM devices when you deploy applications. And even more confusing is, of course, you can deploy 64-bit apps to ARM because ARM has that emulation built into it. But this is by far the most common application type, not just for regular apps, but for updating existing applications and whatnot. Super common application type. Who is number 2?
The new store app?
I'll say you're absolutely correct. This one is impossibly slow, like a close contender to perhaps Office, but Office is just one application. Store Apps is a bunch of them. So in terms of numbers, Store Apps is going to win, definitely. Now, what's the benefit here? Why is, in some extent, the store application a little bit better than a Win32 application?
Does the store apps will stay updated?
Yes, it has that built-in updating capability, whereas Win32 apps, you have to update them or you need to pay someone to update them for you. So that is not built into the platform or to the model. Now, Microsoft had a great vision back in the days to, convince organization to use MSIX. That didn't really take off. We don't see too much of those out there. They still exist. They are there, but in pure numbers, regular desktop applications are going to win on average. Obviously, it's going to depend a bit, but in the end, we see much more of those than we see MSIX. And the old school MSI type apps called line of business apps, MSI, that was the first application type that Intune pretty much supported that would deploy a desktop app. Had a limit of 2 gigabytes, single file. You couldn't have multiple files in that package, so nobody's using that one ever anymore. Some exceptions apply for autopilot, but like an agent that has to come on early and MSI comes on early. But otherwise, nobody's using that one. Intune can also push out web apps as links to like URLs in the store. Edge packages it can create, and if you open your wallet just a little bit, you can pay Microsoft for more applications that they will create for you. It's not cheap, it's not particularly good either, but it's an option. It's part of the Intune suite. So you can pay $10 per user per month, or you can pay, I think it's $2 for the add-on with just that feature alone.
How does that
Again, per user per month.
How does that compare to like the Patch by PC solution?
It's similar in concept, but this one can do maybe, say there are 50 features. This one can do 3. Patch by PC can do the rest.
Got it.
They had such a head start on Microsoft. This one is only 2 years old with Microsoft. Patch by PC has been doing this since, I don't know, forever. But it is there. And sometimes when you work up your license agreement with Microsoft, they will give you a really good deal. And that might make it interesting. I definitely recommend, if you have a lab tenant, buy it so you can at least see what it is. Because paying a couple of dollars per month to be able to play around with the feature, no brainer. Your company won't go bankrupt at all for that. So, but it's a different story if you have 10,000 users, so you have to pay $2 per user per month. So anyhow,
Hey, can I get a quick question?
sure.
So we use the App Store here, right? We use the Microsoft Store here, but somehow we want to block, the user to access the Microsoft Store, but we still want to deploy the app out and want the full feature for auto update. I have sometimes with the problem with that one as well. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It just get me crazy sometimes as well. So I'm not quite sure. Do you have any solution or the good recommendation for it? Just left hand and right hand. Yeah.
Yeah, so as long as you don't block a store on the device level, apps will still be able to update themselves, so you can still
Yes.
push them out. So I'm assuming you guys are blocking it on the user level.
I block
like
it under the
policy.
user level. Yes, and block it under the user level. On the device level, do nothing. Sometimes it just get in, do it. Some user do it, some user didn't. It just randomly happen, and it just give me some crazy things sometimes. Yeah. So in the end of the day, I need to be enable them.
The devices must be able to install them, because it's not just this stuff. It's the built-in components in Windows. They're also getting updates that way, and they also include security updates. And you cannot not patch Windows in times like this. You cannot walk into your security team and say, "Hey, I have an idea. Let's patch half of Windows, and let's hope that the attackers doesn't hack the part we don't patch." 50-50 is a pretty good percentage, but still, drop a sandwich and it's going to end up on the wrong side. Same with patching. You have to have that holistic view of patching. I worked 15 years with a security company. I witnessed firsthand. I've been on site with ransomware attacks, and it's absolutely no fun. And it usually comes down to someone not patching, or having a VPN username test with a password test. That's another story. But
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't. Let's see if we can find some troubleshooting resources on that. All right, awesome. Now, no matter what applications types that you work with, they have a couple of things in common here, at least most of them have, and that is, how do you sign them? And even though platforms like Config Manager has supported user-based deployment since, forever, a lot of organizations are still deploying out applications to devices. But in the Intune area, we start to see more and more deploying out to users or assigning them to a device in a way so it will show up in the company portal for the user, and they can go ahead and install them from there. So like a shopping cart, basically, but what you used to have in your phone, the App Store. And there is really no right or wrong here for these. It's what your company want, how they want to assign applications. Obviously, when you assign to devices, you have the benefit of they will run a system. There will be an agent that actually installs them, and that in that regard is very similar to how Config Manager would do it, because Config Manager will also have an agent that installs the applications in a system context. Now, worth noting is that if you do have a co-managed setup, like Kent talked about in the keynote, app workloads is the one that you can actually have both. You can have Config Manager still around to deploy like really large application like AutoCAD or others, where Intune deploys everything else that is smaller. They can coexist, that workload. But what we did here is we collected a couple of different views from different people on how they viewed targeting, what they thought would be a good reasoning behind it. So we'll put those resources here in the chat for you so you have them. But we will work you through this in the demo here. I think we can practically skip this one. This was just a note that we had in the deck here. But Microsoft replaced the store front end, but not the back end. But the good old business store is gone. Anything you'd like to add there, Andrew?
Nope, just that it made integration with Intune a lot nicer. That's for sure.
Yeah, yes. So anything you'd like to show us, sir? It says demo here. I have it right here.
Sure, I would be happy to. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick. Look good? Looks like a screen, a browser.
It looks like a screen, yes.
All right. So the integration, as I mentioned with Intune, is much nicer these days, and we can actually use the store to assign either UWP apps or Win32 apps, though I personally just tend to deploy Win32 apps as a Win32 app rather than through the store when I'm using Intune. Nevertheless, there are some applications that we often deploy through or assign through the Microsoft Store, things like Power BI, Company Portal, those sorts of things. So I do want to show just what this integration looks like. If I pop over to Windows here in the Intune Admin Center and go to my Windows apps, I can create an app, and when we click this drop down here, you're going to see all of the different types of applications that Johan just went through. And for the new store, we just want to click this option here, Microsoft Store App New. The new store front end again as well. And when we click here, we get a link that actually allows us to search within the Intune Admin Center. Previously, going back a couple of years, we actually had to go into a different portal, select our applications, add them. We had to wait for a process to sync those applications back to Intune, and it was a little bit cumbersome. And so I think there's a lot of improvement here. But from here, we can search for our applications, and it's going to search the Microsoft Store directly. So something like Power BI, we can just search Power, and you can see things like Power BI Desktop, Power Automate, Power Apps, and a whole bunch of other ones as well. You'll find pretty much anything that's available in the store. We can search for like VLC, another common application, for video and audio, things like that. So anything that's available here. But if we were to just select something like Power BI Desktop, go ahead and select that. Once we select that application, all of the required fields, frankly, get added in here automatically, pulled in from the store. So our name of our application, the description, the publisher, which are all requirements for an application in Intune, as well as some additional information here. One thing I do want to point out that this integration doesn't do is pull in the logo from the Microsoft Store. One of the methods we often recommend for this, where you can go find icons for these applications, is a GitHub repository from Aaron Parker. He's a longtime community member, and so he's been putting up a lot of these icons in this repository. Super helpful when you want to get these in there. So let me add this as well. Otherwise, if the icon is not available in this repository, my recommendation is often head over to Google, search images, and find a transparent PNG that you can add in there. And I do like to add these icons in here. It's very helpful for our users who are familiar with seeing those things. So just something to take note of there. You'll have to do that manually. Then from here, we can go ahead and set our assignments. We're not going to assign any right now, but as we'll find throughout the course of this week, pretty much everything we do in Intune, whether it is a configuration profile or a store app or a Win32 app or an autopilot deployment profile, those get assigned to Entra ID groups. So that is where we would do that right here. But we'll see more about this here shortly. And that's pretty much it. Go find the application we want, assign it to a group, and create the app. Pretty straightforward these days. All right. I think you are muted, Johan.
I think you're correct. Can you please share the next slide for me?
Happy to.
Thank you, sir.
There we go.
So, as we mentioned, this application type is the most common one, and this is one where not supposed to be confused with the old line of business app. This requires the extension to be installed, an agent to be available to you. It used to be called Sidecar during the development, but it's the Intune management extension, IME agent, that you will see in the control panel. You will see it in services running as well. Plus, it will have a bunch of log files and whatnot. We'll come back to them a little bit later. What Microsoft forces you to do when using this application type is to package all your app content, set up XE and data files and whatever it needs into a single, basically a zip file, but they call it Intune.win, but it's a zip file behind the scenes. In fact, it's a zip file with zip files, or a zip file, think Inception, but zip files. Why did Microsoft force you to do that? I'm going to steal the screen. You will get it back.
I hope so.
Is it so that you can package additional files in with the actual installer?
Absolutely, yes, but why do they force you to do that? Take a look at this. Take a look at this application here. It's a fairly large application. 4 gigs, but that's not the big deal. The big deal is the number of files in it. If you download content over an HTTP connection, is it more efficient to download a single archive that is a third of the size compared to almost 20,000 small files? it's more effective to download a single file. And it's less costly for the Intune team because apps that you upload to Intune are stored in Azure storage. Intune basically have to pay for that. It's included in your license. You don't have to pay more for that. You can have 1,000 applications, your license fee will be the same, but still they will have to pay for the download. So they want it to be as small, as effective as possible, and you want that too. Because this is stuff we do in Config Manager today. In order to support quick deployment, we often put applications in WIM files so that we can just mount them and run the installer, because it's so much more effective. And think of a scenario like this, where you have, not that one, that one, where you have a network with 3,500 PCs, and when you download apps from Intune, it's delivery optimization that is being used behind the scenes, and it's using peering. Is it more effective for clients to peer one file in between each other across that many PCs, or 20,000 files in between every client? Your switches are going to light up as Christmas trees if that would be the case. So it's all about being effective and to save a buck. That's why they force you to do that. All right, back to you, sir.
There we go.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, we mentioned earlier the size has been bumped up. Used to be 8, now 30 for all paid tenants. You don't get that in trials, but you get it in paid. And as I mentioned, it is using the delivery optimizations for downloads, which is both a throttling and a peering protocol. Challenge with that protocol is not very good configured in Windows by default, but if you don't mind a couple of Intune policies that you will set up tomorrow, you can make it much, much better. Basically going up from the 20, 30, 40% efficiency up to a 60 to 80% efficiency. And that efficiency is data that you are reducing from your WAN links, from your internet links. So just by applying a couple of policies, you can offload terabytes and terabytes of downloads on your links, which I say is a pretty good reward for setting a couple of policies. The app model, like Config Manager, it does support dependencies. You can say that application this is depending on runtime that. You can have supersedence, so you basically upgrade applications. We see a lot of folks also using the app detection method to do upgrades. Patch my PC does that, for example. And there is extremely limited monitoring of the app. You basically get a thumbs up or thumbs down. You don't get much details in Intune about the app deployment. So if you guys want to have, I will talk about that later, but you basically have to add additional logging to the app itself if you want to be able to troubleshoot it effectively. So yeah.
I have a really quick question.
Yeah.
So say if we were deploying an app that would need licenses, will we do kind of what we did similar to this morning, is like create that group, and then would the licenses automatically get assigned with users that we put in that group, or how would that work?
So you assign licenses, you assign deployments or Intune. In Intune, they want to deploy an app. You create an assignment to a group for that application. That typically hasn't to do anything with any licenses.
Okay.
Are you talking about the app? Yeah, go ahead, sir.
I can give a scenario where it might. Something like one of the native licenses like Visio or Project.
Correct.
You may take a group, a security group that has users with those licenses assigned, and then assign the Visio application as available. to that user group. That's a scenario that I've seen.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Right.
Next slide, please.
Hey, this is demo.
I know.
I was going to ask you real quick, Johan, a little bit of a sidebar. Have you come across any customers that have requested to go beyond 30 gigs yet?
No.
No.
I had a discussion with a couple, but I don't think that's an option. I haven't heard of one being able to ask Microsoft for it. Technically, what you can do, which is stupid, so don't do it, but you could basically take a 100 gig app, divide it into like 25 gig chunks, and have them being dependent on each other. So they get downloaded to the clients, copied over to a staging folder, and then you have a fifth application that actually installs it from that folder. But no.
Is there even an app that really is more than 30 gig? What kind of app is?
A math
Engineering
lab.
applications.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, you said MATLAB, MATLAB, MathCAD, ANSYS, Adobe applications.
Visual
AutoCAD
Studio,
3,
45 gigs.
Yeah.
Autodesk. Yeah.
Yep. I had came across a version, an install of ANSYS that was 120 gigs. I'm
Would
just
not
not doing that in
recommend to
Intune.
deploy. No, I would not recommend deploying that in Intune. Use config manager or something that actually works with it.
Yep.
Yes.
So they are out there.
Okay.
Or if you're, deploying Call of Duty to all of your users or something like that, which I joke, but education, there's esports teams and things like that. That is also a real thing. It's interesting.
Yeah, we have Battlefield, but we don't really package it.
Yeah. Oftentimes with those, you'll find a different way of doing
Yes,
it,
thank
but you got to get those applications out there somehow.
Yes. Yes.
All right.
Is there an hardware limitation? What's the limitation behind this value? Is there a specific reason, or?
It's just that even when you start to hit 20 gigs size of packages, the download will typically take about 2 days because the protocol is going to time out and try multiple times to get that going. The only way we have been able to reliably deploy really large apps through Intune is to have local cache service with the content. So like connected cache servers that the client has on their same network or very close to them, so they're well connected to them. But yeah, I mean, it's networking, it's storage, and all those resources. Again, Intune shared service. They have to enforce certain quotas. Great question.
All right. How about a quick demo?
You do that, and I refill my coffee.
Sounds great. All right. So the first thing that we need to do before we build a Win32 app is download the content prep tool that we were talking about. Content prep tool is available up on GitHub. It is created and maintained by Microsoft. So I'm going to share that link right here. And just a quick note on this tool, it is a command line based tool, so we'll be using it here shortly, and you'll see this in a lab here in a little bit as well. But you always want to make sure that you are on the latest release. So the latest release currently is version 1.8.7. We don't get them often. Historically, it's been about once per year. So you can see we've got a 2025 release, 24, 23, 22, 21. But the importance there is that all of these releases generally fix things or add a couple of different features. So if you do actually have to have FIPS compliance, the recent version upgrade or the recent version release actually adds that in there. Silent mode, things like that. We had a version release a couple of years ago that actually allowed us to bundle files that are greater than 4 gigs. And so always make sure you're on the latest version here. So I've already downloaded the latest version. I want to go ahead and let's clear this out right here. I've already got it in this directory. Downloaded the GitHub content here and extracted it. And so if we have never used the content prep tool before, it's pretty easy to just call the executable and then run a -h. That's going to give us all the information that we need to run this tool. So a couple of things here, we can do a -v to actually show the tool version, which a -h will show as well. This confirms that we are on the latest version. And then here is really how we want to use this tool. So a couple of things. We have -c. This is going to point to our source folder that's going to hold all of the content that we want to package using this tool. The source setup file, typically what I'll put in here is either the executable that we're going to run, the MSI that we're going to run, or the PowerShell script. But we actually end up specifying that later on in Intune, but we do have to specify one of those setup files here. The output folder is where the actual content or the package itself is going to be output. -A we do not use. This is for Windows S mode. And then we have a -Q to run in quiet mode, or a -QQ to run in, of course, extra quiet mode. But these 3 switches right here are the ones that we really want to pay attention to. So what we're going to put together here is just a simple Win32 app in Intune for Notepad++, a common, powerful text editor if you've not come across it before. And you can see here in this directory, I've got a couple of applications that I've packaged together previously. And I have in each one of these directories, directory structure. So in Notepad++, I have a source directory, and this has the content that I need to package up. For Notepad++, it is super simple. It's just an executable. But if we had other applications, we may have additional files that go along with that executable. Johan showed the 3ds Max on his computer that had 18,000 content files that you might want to package up. You could have configuration files here. I might even show you real quick my Microsoft 365 apps. You see here is a Visio installer that's got the setup.exe, the config for Visio itself, and the removal XML. So the point here is that any content you need as part of this installer, we're going to put in our source directory. Now, I also have another directory here called package, and this is where we're going to place our archive that the content prep tool is going to create for us. You can see that's empty right now, but if I run this command right here and provide values to those switches that we pointed out earlier, we can go ahead and create that package. So we're pointing to our source directory with a -c. We're pointing to the setup file with our -s, and then where we want to output the package with the -o switch. So if we run this right here, in the background, we'll actually see the Intune Win file get created in our package directory. And if we open up 7-zip and open this file here, we'll find an Intune Win package directory. And there are 2 directories in this package. One are the contents, which you can see as Johan mentioned earlier, sort of archive inception here is another Intune Win file. And these are all of the contents that we had in our source directory, but they've been packaged up and encrypted there. And if we go to the other directory, our metadata directory, there is a detection.xml file in here. And if we open that file, we're going to find some information about the package. So the name and the setup file are going to be pulled from that -s that we put in earlier. We're going to see the actual size of the content before encryption. And then this key here is going to be used by our clients to actually decrypt the content and go forward with the install. So this is what the content prep tool will help us put together. And now with this tool, we can go ahead and create an application. But before we do that, we do want to create a group that we're going to assign this application to. So if I go to the Intune Admin Center, I click Groups. We'll just click New Group here. We do want to create a security group. And then I'm going to give it a name. So we'll call this SG-USR-Notepad++ and available. Now, this is a naming convention that I use in some of my tenants. This is, I think, a great time to just mention naming conventions here. So when I look at this at a glance, I can see that this is a security group. It is going to be populated only by users. We don't want to mix and match device objects and user objects in these groups. And then typically I'm going to have a group purpose in here. So in this case, I'm going to put Notepad++ and we're assigning it as available. Some folks will put versioning in this group. I typically do not, depending on the application, but something like Notepad++, I just always want the latest version of Notepad++ out there. We'll also note that Intune itself is generally made for more broader deployments. And what I mean by that is you may have a group that's called something like, application baseline deployments or general applications or something like that, where you are assigning a whole bunch of applications that you want to make available for your users. Maybe 10, 15, 20 applications that you have out there, common applications that should be available to everybody. And this just makes things a little bit more easier. They're a little bit more easy. And from a supportability standpoint and from a service standpoint, this is sort of how Intune is built. Now, in a lab or for a demo, this is pretty straightforward. Or if you have applications that are just going to be assigned out to a handful of users, I'll often go with this naming convention. The point here is have a naming convention. Whatever makes sense for you and your organization with some of those tips in mind, follow that and be consistent with it. Now, we have the group name, we know it's a security group, and we know we're going to populate it with users. So I'm going to add a couple of users in here. I've just got some test users that I use in here. I am a Star Wars fan, if you don't notice by some of the Star Wars behind me back here. So most of my users are Star Wars characters in this tenant. So we're going to go ahead and create that group. And then we need to create the application itself. So we're going to click Apps, go over to Windows Apps, and Create. And go back to this dropdown we saw earlier. Now we're going to select Windows App, or Win32 in parentheses there. Once we select that, the very first page, we need to select the package that we just created. So we're going to go ahead and browse to that Intune WIM file that we created, which I have here. Yep, that's the one we just created. The Intune Admin Center UI is going to read in the information from that metadata.xml file that we saw. Everything looks good there. That's what we expected. And then some information is going to be populated here into this page. Now, I mentioned for every application, we do have to have a name, description, and publisher. So for this, we're going to go ahead and just update it to say Notepad++. Versioning, common to put versioning here or in the app version field here. This is just basically just a display name, so that can be updated later on, even if we change the version in the package here. Then we're going to give it a description. So just a text editor is fine. But I do want to point out with the description, this is something that users are going to see if the application is made as available. They'll see this in the company portal. So we actually do have a subset of Markdown that we can use here. And so we can actually do things like bold our text or use italics or something like that. And we get a nice little preview here, like that feature that they added. We do have to put in a publisher, so Don Ho is the developer of Notepad++. And then, of course, we have the ability to put this additional information in here as well as a logo like we talked about earlier with the Microsoft Store apps. Now, everything looks good for a basic install here, so we're going to go ahead and move on. And then for the install command, Notepad++, again, very, very easy application to install. We just call the executable and a /s for a silent install. And on the uninstall side, it's exactly the same. Notepad++ adds an uninstall.exe when it installs, and then we can call a /s in order to silently uninstall it if we need to. Also want to point out here too that Intune does support directory variables, so we're able to just call in program files here. A couple of other options, we can set the installation time required. Notepad++ should be a lot quicker than 60 minutes, so we may want to fail that application install a little bit sooner, maybe 15, maybe even 30. Point is, we can customize that right here. Since we are setting this assignment as available, we can allow our users to uninstall the application if they no longer need it. This was added earlier this year or late last year, so that was a nice feature as well. I'm going to leave that set to the default of yes. We can install for system or user, and we can determine the restart behavior. We also have return codes here. We generally stick to the default here. But Johan, I think you mentioned recently with the PowerShell app deployment toolkit might be a common area where we actually would adjust these return codes. Is that right?
Yeah, for example, if you're using that toolkit, it has a little UI that you can show for applications. You can have a user defer an installation, and that's going to spit back a different return code, 1602 by default. And then you can go in here and say, if they do so defer, don't fail it. Just say it was a successful deployment. Detection method is still going to fail, but that's another story.
Very nice, thank you. So we do have the ability to customize this and often have some scenarios where we will. Now, if we go to the next page, we do have to set some requirements for the application. So we can specify the architecture, whether this can be installed on 32-bit systems, 64-bit, or ARM devices. For this particular application, it was the 64-bit version of Notepad++. So we want to allow this on 64-bit devices, or we can allow our ARM devices to actually emulate the 64-bit version as well. But we don't want to attempt installing on a 32-bit OS. We do need to set a minimum operating system here. So we could set something like, let's say Windows 10 22H2, or if you are actually running unsupported versions of Windows 10 out there, you could set back to this as well if absolutely necessary. Or if you're running an LTSC version, you might want to set this a little bit lower. For Notepad++, again, pretty flexible application. We can install that pretty much anywhere. On the hardware requirements here, just a couple of things to point out. I generally don't add anything in here. Disk space required might make sense. But one thing that we definitely recommend not using is the minimum CPU speed here. Most of our applications these days, most of the applications that I come across, even the larger ones, this minimum CPU speed is going to be met anyways. But with modern operating systems, with the way that they try to conserve power, for example, the CPU speed is quite dynamic. So I've seen CPU speed, you know, on a 3 gigahertz processor drop down to 900 megahertz just because the OS didn't need anything faster at that moment. So we don't like setting that here. I know, Johan, you had a fun example somewhat recently as well.
Fun is not the word I would choose, but we bought a bunch of new desktops for the lab, and the power adapters they were shipped with were not the right ones. Because of the difference in power adapter, it hard-coded the CPU to 0.79 gigahertz. And they were just dead slow. And it took a while to figure out what was going on here. But yeah.
And the CPUs definitely were not meant to be that slow. So this application would have, if we set this here to something like 2 gigahertz, absolutely the application install would not have worked. So we recommend staying away from that.
I'll share that post because I blogged about it. I call it the tale of the slow CPU.
I love it. The blog post title, not the fact that you had to deal with that. So then our requirements look okay here. Basically, we're allowing this to install on any Windows 10 or Windows 11 device that is 64-bit. Then we get to our detection rules. So just a tip here, when figuring out a detection rule for an application, just install the app on a test device. For example, see what changes. It's likely that some registry keys are going to be added. You're going to have some files installed onto your disk. See what changes, and you can use those things for your detection rules. So in Intune, we do have some options here. We can manually configure detection rules native in the UI, or we can use custom detection scripts with some PowerShell scripts. For this one, we're just going to create some detection rules right here. And we're going to use a pretty simple one. We're going to use a file detection rule. So we're going to look in a specific path here for the existence of this executable. And if that executable exists, we're just going to say, yep, the install was successful, the application is installed. So pretty simple rule, but we can add additional rules in here, or like I mentioned, we can actually use a PowerShell script. So we can be as complex or dynamic as needed. Then we get to our dependencies. We're not going to set any here right now, but if another application needed to be installed before this, we could. The most recent example that I've come across is if you're using Remote Desktop Manager from a company called Devolutions, it began requiring .NET 9. Most of the devices that I'm running don't have .NET 9 installed by default. So I had to create a dependency that installs .NET 9 and then installs Remote Desktop Manager. So that's one example of our dependencies. Then for supersedence, if we're going to create a new version of this application, so let's say Notepad++ 8.8.7 is released, if it hasn't been already in the last few weeks, we could create a new app and say that it supersedes the old version. But we're not going to create any of those right now either. And we're not going to set any scope tags. We'll talk about those later this week. And then we finally get to our assignments, and this is where we are going to assign the application to a group. In this case, we created a group of users. So if I go down here, we can assign applications as required or available, or we can actually assign an uninstall if we've got to get rid of an application. I do want to point out some of the wording here. Available for enrolled devices. This does not mean that it can only be assigned to devices. It can be assigned to groups of users or devices. It just means they have to be enrolled in Intune. So that's the one we're going to use. We're going to go ahead and add a group. We're going to search for the group that we created earlier, right here. And once we select this group, you can see we have some options available. So if I click on these right here, you can see that we can configure our end user notifications. We can say whether or not we want to include the group. So when I assign a group as included, that means everyone in the group is going to receive this assignment. They'll be able to install this application through the company portal if they so choose. Now, I talked earlier about having these broad groups for some of our baseline applications. We may want to exclude groups as well. That's as simple as saying, go ahead and exclude this group that we've assigned here. You can also use filters for some of that, but we'll come back to filters a little bit later. Again, we can set our end user notifications, and we can select our delivery optimization priority. This one right here, I do want to mention for available applications, this is always set by default as content download in foreground. If you assign an application as required, it will default to content download in background, but we always recommend having these set to content download in foreground. The reason for that is that if for delivery optimization to work as effectively as possible, is we need devices to get that content as quickly as possible. And we've not noticed any drawbacks in actually assigning these to content download in foreground. This is just going to allow for those first couple of devices to receive the content very quickly and start sharing them out to their friends as soon as possible. So we always recommend setting that here. And then we can just set when we want the application to be available to our users. In this case, we just want to set as soon as possible. So now we're going to click OK. We're going to click Next, review our summary as we always should with any assignment. Make sure we're assigning the correct application and that we're assigning it to the group that we expect here. Now we're going to create that application. And here in a little bit, we will see that application show up in the company portal. Now, this is something similar that you'll have in an upcoming lab here, and you'll be able to see that company portal. You'll be able to see the application rather come up in the company portal on your own. Johan, would you like to hop to that now, or do you want to talk a little bit about scripting, or we want to save scripting for later?
Let's say scripting for tomorrow, and then we can do the app tricks first, and then we can do the lab. That would be pretty good.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds
Can I
good.
steal the screen for a second?
Steal away, sir.
All right.
Quick
so-
question.
Yeah.
How does like if you have applications that are packaged in config manager, and definitely you have also applications that are packaged in Intune, how do they show up in the Intune admin console, the portal? Are they like on a different, they're just,
No,
for
they
example,
the
if
app,
you wanted to remotely deploy them or push an application to a device, make them
no,
available.
you still have to manage them separately. So the config manager apps,
There's,
you
yeah.
manage a config manager into an app, you manage an Intune, but you can still have config manager apps showing up in the company portal. So you can
Yeah.
still configure that part. So the user can see both applications. There is a setting for that in client settings
Okay.
for the config manager client.
What blades are they located in Intune, for example, under
The
not
applications?
under application? There is I know there is an application, but they don't show up in the
But
same blade.
No, you will not see config manager apps in the Intune admin portal. You will only see it on the client in the company portal, which is an accompanying app you can install and should install on every single device.
We do see them in our environment. Actually, they are on a different tab, I believe. Maybe there are like managed app and applications or something different. Two kinds.
In if I go to Intune,
Yes.
and go to the applications here that I work with,
And instead of
I
going to the
will
application.
I will not see my config manager apps here.
Okay, that's fine. Yes. But what I'm asking is, for example, if you look for the device in Intune admin center.
Yeah. The inventory data might show up applications that is not installed from Intune. If that's what you're asking.
I just wanted to know, for example, if you're looking for a device and you see the list on the tab, there are applications, there are managed apps, there are other kinds also. I don't have access right now, but yeah, that it's just the problem that I had last time I encountered was some of the applications from config manager shows in Intune console when I search for a device, and some of them they just don't show, and none of us seem to figure it out.
So if I go to a co-managed device here, I don't think I have any
Okay,
apps deployed from it, but
so it
I
doesn't
have
show.
the managed apps, and these are the ones that I have configured in Intune, not config manager. In the discovered apps, I may see applications that have been deployed from something else.
Yes, so in our environment, there is also another tab that shows applications in here. So
Well, when you have tenant attached devices, like I can even, let's see what I have. Like this one, it's actually managed by config manager. It's a tenant attached device. The workload is fully config manager. Then I have applications here. These are config manager apps.
yes. So in our case, of course, we are in a hybrid environment. You see all of them, like application, managed apps, and discovered apps. All of them are in the same kind of tab. But some of the config manager apps are not showing. Most of them show, but some of them, and like know what.
I don't know.
Okay.
Anything you can think of, Andrew?
No, I don't think so. Because they should show, so long as the device has it deployed, or so long as the application is deployed to the device, it should be in that window that you just showed.
It is deployed to be available by default, all devices, just available. But most of the applications, some of the applications just don't show. And we couldn't figure that out for some reason.
These applications that I'm showing here, they are config manager applications.
Yes, okay. So some of them. So if you click on one of the apps, I think you can definitely deploy it from here. You can push it to the device.
Yes, I can, but these
Yeah.
are it's
Config manager
Intune
apps.
telling config manager client to install it.
Yes. Okay. So if some of them don't show, what does that mean?
Well, that
It's studio wide, so I wasn't sure why.
if the app is assigned to that device,
Yeah, by they're assigned to the
and
default.
it's a tenant attached device, it should show up here. The keyword is tenant attached. Otherwise, you don't see this information that you have here.
Yes, there's tenant attached for sure.
No,
Okay.
nothing that. Well, let's see if I can find something.
Just
I mean, you probably saw when I was promoted in as a global admin, I didn't have permission to see them, and that's because my global admin account does not have permission in config manager. But my on-prem Johan account is an on-prem user that is synced, and this user has permissions in config manager. That's why I see them, because that user is in config manager happen to be an admin user that is allowed to work with apps.
yes. Definitely we have the permission.
All right. So it's very common to use wrappers for your applications. So you can call PowerShell scripts directly in config manager or in Intune by using PowerShell exe. Just please be aware of that the engine, the sidecar, the service is a 32-bit, so it will launch a 32-bit PowerShell. And that may work if your script is simple, but most part, if you have a modern script, it will fail to run on a 32-bit machine. So you want to force it to run. So if I go here, for example, and pick one of my test apps that I'm using, I think this one. Oh, that was a copy test I was doing. So this one here will launch a 32-bit PowerShell, which you typically do not want. But again, if it's a simple install, it may work. What you instead want to do is something like this, where you're forcing it to launch the 64-bit PowerShell exe, and then the name of the script. That's a better option. There are tons of conversion tools out there that can help you migrate apps that you have in Config Manager. Andrew, can you maybe share the link to Ben's little utility?
Of course.
You can also use PowerShell to create applications. There is a very popular module from Nikolai Anderson. It's up on the PowerShell gallery. I have a copy here, I think. This is the name of the module. So up on PowerShell gallery, just search for that one. That is a module. And this is also what you have to use if you need to upload really large applications, because the Intune interface won't allow for it. It will try, but it will time out. So, but I put together a blog post with this information here. Was a proof of concept I was working with a customer for. It was the Uber Suite at the time, but this one has references and examples for that PowerShell module. So I will put this information in the chat for you.
I do have a question really quick.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of, I feel like Intune is really, you can control a lot of things with Intune. However, in terms of config manager, do you feel like it offers a better degree of control when trying to push out an app and wanting it to deliver a certain user experience, if that makes sense?
Config Manager still offers more features than
Correct.
Intune does, but
Uh-huh.
Question is, do you need those features, or is what
Right.
Intune offers, is it actually good enough, what we're trying to accomplish? Or can we work with something else to provide that additional control mechanism, but still do it in Intune? There are also some organizations, they will buy extensions to Intune to work with applications that have better support. For example, Intune doesn't do software metering, but there are solutions out there that does software metering, something Config Manager has. The only thing that Intune doesn't really do well at all, that is tough for some companies, it doesn't do maintenance windows. You cannot say that. Yeah,
that's the kind of issues we run into in terms of maintenance and trying to. We primarily use configuration manager for like all of our metering things of that nature. So we kind of primarily, in terms of pushing our applications, we primarily use configuration manager just for the degree of control that we want to have when pushing our applications to our environment.
Yes, I mean, but at this point, I mean, Config Manager is pretty much feature complete. It's just a small development team in Redmond that is still maintaining it. Don't expect much features coming up to it, but there are like hundreds and hundreds of people working with Intune. So it's clearly where Microsoft does the investment. That's where we will see the changes. That's where you see the involvement over time. So I'm confident that as the year goes by here, Intune will be closer to what configuring many apps in features and maybe not performance because it's still a shared service, but it's improving. The Intune that you guys have today is not even remotely the Intune, as Kent mentioned, that was around 10 years ago, even 4 years ago. It's a massive difference. So yeah. Anyhow, something I recommend looking into. I mean, when we create these applications, like Andrew showed, and when they then create the demo, if you have bought that license that I mentioned from Microsoft, either as part of the Intune suite or as a standalone add-on, this is very similar to the store experience, except these are now not store applications. These are desktop applications. So if I pick an application, I just go through the wizard here, select it, and then next, finish, but everything is pre-populated. And if I go to one of those apps that has been created this way, it will have a type. It's still a Win32 app, but it was created by a catalog. And this can be really useful when you're looking for inspiration on detection methods. Because here you can see that when Microsoft creates 7-zip, they actually have 3 detection methods or rules. All have to be true for the application to be installed. So they look at the file, the version of this file has to be 24/7. They're looking for the size of this one, have to be exactly that in bytes, and this register key must exist. Then the application is installed. If you guys are using Patch My PC, they will be joining us on Wednesday, by the way, for a short introduction and to give their thoughts on the application landscape. But if I pick one of those applications, like this one here, you will see that they are using scripts for detection methods. If I take that script and paste it here, this is a detection script. Now, they purposely keep it small to be good citizens in terms of policy size, but it also makes it pretty much unreadable. I've been using PowerShell for 20 years, and I'm looking at the script like, oh, okay, what does it do? But you can take that script, you can go over to Visual Studio, and you can paste it in. You can ask Copilot, you can say, make it pretty. And it will make it pretty.
I noticed when you went and deployed the catalog app, supersedence was not an option in that. Does it actually keep that updated for you?
No. They have, well, no, they have some detection methods that they're using, but I'm exclusively using the Patch My PC platform for automatic update of applications. I have more using the app catalog for Microsoft as a inspiration and playing around with things. But here you have a more readable version of the same script, I think. Still an advanced script, but it's at least readable. All right. Sometimes when you test applications, you want to rerun them. Problem with Intune is it doesn't make a note of the changes that you did. So you often have to go in and delete some registry keys for the app in order to be able to rerun it. We do have a blog post that's been updated a couple of times that deals with this. I do recommend you to read the comments of it because it has changed over time quite a bit. And finally here, on the client side of things, we strongly recommend to exclude the cache from antivirus scanning because it's known to break things, especially if you have aggressive antivirus scanners like Symantec or McAfee or Trend Micro, any of those. The modern ones like CrowdStrike, they don't have that problem. They work differently, but make sure to exclude those folders. And also this is where you will find the troubleshooting logs. It used to be just a single large log file for the extension engine, but these days there are separate log files, as you will learn in the lab for this. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
That exclusion, you do it from the Intune admin center for all devices. How does that?
That would be a Defender policy. You will learn about policies
Defender
tomorrow.
policy.
Yeah, or whatever antivirus software you're using. They all have their different admin portals to configure exclusions.
Yeah, we use Sentinel definitely and Defender endpoint.
Oh, we're going to leave you today with the lab. Andrew and I will be around here for another 15 minutes or so. If you can complete it today, perfectly, awesome. If you want to continue to work on that tomorrow morning, by all means do so. But this is the last thing we'll do today. For those who are in Europe, I totally understand if you rather want to do the lab in the morning your time, that'll be okay. But let me get that link going over to you.
We have access to the lab environment 24 hours too, don't we?
This week, yes.
Awesome.
This week only, yeah. So Friday midnight or so, it will be turned off. I wish we could give every student that we ever had their own PC for life, but we have 10,000 students on the academy, and that will be a lot of PCs to buy. Not right now, but over the years. Where did my lab guides go? Here.
Andrew, I got a question regarding the package folder and the source file folder. For the source file folder, that's supposed to contain only like the installers, MSI, EXE, and stuff like that, correct?
Oh, everything, every app.
Everything? Okay.
No matter the size.
And then the package folder, it should just contain only whatever comes out, populate from the Intune.win file.
Exactly. Think of that packet as an archive of the source folder.
Okay.
Like you have a right click and create a zip file.
Okay. Exactly.
That would be pretty much it.
Oh, so the lab will be shut down on Friday, you said?
Yes. Friday midnight, we usually turn them off.
We can't even get for 1 week at least.
Problem is we need the machines for a class next week.
Okay.
I think.
No worries.
Oh,
so it All right, that should be allowed in the chat. We'll be here for another 12 minutes or so if you have any questions, but otherwise we look forward to see you again tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Central Time, to continue our journey on learning Intune.
Hey, this is Nick. I actually have a quick question for either one that can answer.
Okay.
We are looking at moving over our MacBooks, and I was wondering if you guys are going to be covering anything with Mac, or is it just going to be Windows in this environment?
Windows for this training only. Andrew may be able to answer a question about the Mac or two because he has one.
Okay.
But a shameless plug, we do have up on the Academy, we have it's not a master class, it's a shorter training.
Okay.
But that one focuses on Mac OS management with Intune specifically.
Oh,
so it's 6 weeks. There are 2 hours every week. We don't have a live schedule for the next one, but the previous one is available for on demand.
Oh, perfect. Awesome. Thank you.
Of course. I'll put that link in the chat.
Perfect.
Johan,
Yes.
maybe one question.
Mhm.
Is it possible to interact with a specific wizard? Like, for example, we have few applications that are a package manager. So you install the application package manager, then you have to interact on what package you have to download and install.
Yes, in a way, there are community solutions out there, like the ones that we mentioned a couple of times before. This one here works with Intune and supports customizations of the wizard runs. So you can use that to collect data that you feed into the installer to do whatever you want that installer to do. So it is possible. We have a free community course on that product on the Academy. We just finished it up, but the recordings are available. So this one is priced just right, but this is a 5-week course on how to work with that platform for packaging. And it also covers how they can be deployed from Config Manager and Intune.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, everyone. I'm gonna call it a day here, and looking forward to see you guys tomorrow again at 9 a.m. sharp. Hopefully with a fresh night's rest under the belt by then. And yeah, see you tomorrow.